Welcome to Western Perspective. I'm Paige Reed. We'll kick off this week with the Battlers series, covering key electorates that need to be won in the upcoming 2025 election. For Labour, the challenge is to hold on to several blue ribbon strongholds following Mark McGowan's historic victory in 2021. For the Liberals, they need to win them back and aims to form government in 2028. This week, we begin the series in Churchlands, where Labour's Christine Tonkin faces the well-known Liberal candidate, Basil Zemplis, and that's before the possibility of a Teal candidate entering the race. Mrs Tonkin has worked hard for the last 4 years and has become actively involved in the community, from creating environmental initiatives to assisting the elderly with the latest round of the cost of living payments.
It is part of my job, and particularly for older people. This morning we had a scam prevention forum at the Doubleview bowling club, and we had over 100 seniors come along for that scam prevention forum, because seniors are particularly vulnerable to scams. So we really have to look after our older people, and me door knocking about the cost of living rebate is part of looking after our older people.
It will definitely be an uphill battle, and Christine Tonkin joins me this week. Christine, thanks for being here. Before we get into the main topic, I understand that you have some very interesting credentials, such as working for the United Nations for a very long time. What sort of advantage has this given you as an MP?
I've worked internationally for the Irish government, for 3 UN system organisations, including the United Nations Development Programme, a peacekeeping mission, and for the International Atomic Energy Agency, as well as undertaking international consulting work for the United Nations Development Programme and subsequently for the Asian Development Bank. I think that experience has brought me a different perspective on issues and how you bring the community together to solve particular problems or to take advantage of particular opportunities. And I think those skill sets have stood me in good stead.
There is going to be a very interesting challenge for you facing a high-profile candidate which has been parachuted in, and the possibility of a Teal candidate. Will it be a very tough fight for you?
I welcome the challenge, and I welcome the more the merrier in terms of competition for this seat, because I think that is good for democracy. What I think people in this electorate appreciate, and what I've learned over my time as a local member, is that I can't take any vote for granted. I have to work for my electorate on a daily basis and engage with people around the things that are important to them. That will be the challenge for my competitors in this election, because people in this community don't want to be taken for granted.
Independent MP Liz Constable believes that parachuting well-known candidates is not a guaranteed win. Do you agree with this?
Oh, I do agree. And I think if you look at the makeup of our electorate, I'd say more than half the people in our electorate think deeply about environmental and social issues, but they may be fiscally conservative, but they're deep thinkers. And so it's very difficult for someone to be parachuted in believing that they will go on to do leadership things and use this electorate as a stepping stone to a leadership role in their party or in government. I think that's problematic, because people in this community want good representation, and I have to work very hard as a local member to respect that trust.
You are one of the battlers. Do you believe that you can hold on to this seat?
I think that Mark McGowan opened the door for me to take this seat, but it's been my responsibility ever since to build my relationship with the electorate and to demonstrate that I represent them effectively in the Parliament and that I represent their interests as a community. So I'm not daunted by having set out with a smaller margin. I believe I can win this seat, and I can believe that what I have to offer, what my brand is, is valued by the community.
Christine Tonkin, the Labor MP for Churchlands, thank you for joining us this week.
Thank you.
That was Christine Tonkin. And now here is Dr. Andrew Miller with his weekly medical and news commentary.
Hi, thanks for your time. In the light of a few tragic events that have been in the news recently where first responders have had to use a fatal force in order to get a situation under control and save lives, I want to say a few words about post-traumatic stress disorder amongst first responders and military personnel. Also happens in healthcare and can happen in other industries as well, or people who've been exposed to traumatic events for whatever reason. It's a complex psychological and at times psychiatric issue for people, whereby they can suffer from increase in things like depression and anxiety and have difficulty in functioning in their return to life after these events. It's been well known throughout culture, going back to last century, known as shell shock in the soldiers who had returned from the First World War, having seen terrible things, and the same after the Second World War. And often we haven't had a lot of understanding and compassion as a society for those people who suffer disability as a result of having been exposed to traumatic events. There is help available, there is treatment available for these things, and there are even new areas, new medications and new techniques which are being used to try and reduce the triggering symptoms that people often get, things like the sound of a car backfiring or a sudden confrontation to someone who's been working in a battle scenario or has been involved in the use of firearms in civilian life. Those things can be triggering. So working on reducing those triggers is something that doctors and psychologists and other mental health care professionals aim for. It can be a difficult thing for families, and all of the successful strategies start with understanding where these issues are coming from, and also includes avoiding self-treatment, things like drugs and alcohol, and avoidance of the activities of normal life. So my heart goes out to anyone who's involved in the kind of tragic law enforcement incidents that we've seen recently, and particularly those who put themselves in the way of harm as a normal part of their job. And I repeat my call to governments to treat these kind of employees decently. So whether it's Defence Force, your police, nurses, paramedics, doctors in emergency departments, and teachers even, anyone who's responding to the bleeding edge of trauma in the community needs to be properly looked after. We're a rich country, we can afford it. Thanks very much for your time.
That's Dr. Miller, and that's Western Perspective for this week. We'll be back again next week, but for now, back to you, Ivan and Melly.
Thanks, Paige. And before we go, there's something big coming, isn't there, Ivan?
That's right. Next week is the federal budget, and of course we have the latest reports, analysis, and what it means to you. Stay tuned to our reports throughout different platforms, from our website to social media pages.
And that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest news on our website, wamnnews.com.au.
Remember to subscribe to the WAMN Extra News Club so we can continue our work in the community. Full details on wamnnews.com.au/news/extra. From Melly and myself, wish you good health, good night. See you next Sunday.
Thanks for watching.